What's up, guys? Welcome back to the video. As always, how are you guys doing? Hopefully well. Listen, today we're about to check out this video. Europe can replace U.S. trade, and here's how. So let's see how they can replace the U.S. trade. We all know Donald Trump came into office, placed these ridiculous tariffs on damn near every country in the world. even the countries, even territories that's not inhibited by humans, like the pigeon territory, penguin island. This guy's crazy, man. But anyway, let's check out this video and see what's going on. As always, let me know where you're chiming in from, and we can chat in the comment section. Besides that, let's go.
Do you remember the good old days of transatlantic trade? Well, it's not all over just yet, but maybe it's time to look for some alternative trade partners. The European Union is the world's trade champion. In 2023 alone, it racked up 7.6 trillion euros in trade, which is 16% of the global trade share, more than the US and China. And that's by a very good margin. And for all the criticism the EU gets, trade is something it does really well. That's thanks in part to the single market, probably the EU's biggest achievement after peace, and a growing network of 130 trade deals with countries across the entire world. Unsurprisingly, the EU does most trade with the US and China. But what is surprising is that there's no free trade deal with either, yet. Seeing the US at the top is especially worrying, especially with Trump flipping the tariff switch on and off, hitting European economies very hard. So in this video, we'll look at the EU's trade with the US and how we could diversify or even replace it. And yes, we think it's possible. In 2023, the US was the EU's biggest trading partner, accounting for about 17% of total trade. Goods and services flowed both ways, totaling 1.6 trillion euros. That's billions crossing the Atlantic every day. The EU exported 823 billion euros to the US, while the US sent 774 billion euros back. And just 5 sectors make up half of all the EU-US trade, led by medicines, pharmaceuticals, and of course, cars. And here's the problem. These sectors are already hit hard by tariffs. Trump has slapped on a 10% tariff across the board and a massive 25% on motor vehicles. This is some serious tough love for Germany, who is the EU's biggest exporter to the US. They are definitely feeling the pain. And it could get even worse. In 3 months, the US might reinstate a 20% tariff on all goods. And the Kiel Institute ran a worst-case scenario. What if the US imposed 25% tariffs across the board and the EU hit back with the same? The result? A 17.5% drop in EU exports to the US and a 0.5% hit to the EU's GDP. Ouch. Now that's the extreme case, but let's run with it. A 17.5 drop means the EU would need to replace around 144 billion euros in lost exports. And can the EU fill that gap? We think so. And it starts with new trade partners. India really stands out among the many deals in the works, a massive country with huge potential. For example, India currently imposes import tariffs exceeding 100% on cars. That's crazy, right? But under the proposed free trade agreement, these tariffs could gradually be reduced to as low as 10% for European-made vehicles, opening up a significant opportunity for EU car manufacturers. And I'm sure Germany would absolutely love this. And the projections love it too, suggesting that total trade volume could rise to approximately 167 billion euros by 2026. This means India's exports to the EU could rise to 93 billion euros, and EU exports to India to 75 billion euros. And of course, this could help offset part of the 144 billion euro trade loss from the US, bringing that net loss down to around 130 billion euros. As for where things stand today, both the EU and India are aiming to finalize the agreement by the end of this year. And then there's another massive trade deal in the making, Mercosur, a pact between the EU and Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Studies estimate this could boost trade flows between the EU and Mercosur by 37%. And this time, it's not just about cars. Pharma would benefit too, with Mercosur's 14% tariffs on medicines set to be phased out completely, giving EU companies better access to over 260 million people. Projections suggest that the total trade volume could rise to around 126 billion euros by 2026. This means Mercosur exports to the EU would jump to around 49 billion euros and EU exports to Mercosur to around 77 billion euros. That would help offset the potential 144 billion euro trade loss from the US even further, bringing the net loss to around 109 billion euros. Now, we don't have time to dive into every single trade deal, but if we zoom out and just look at the potential boost to EU exports, here's what it could add up to. For Mexico, though, there are no official estimates, so we made a conservative guess, a 20% export boost, or in other words, 10 billion euros. But here's the problem. Even if all of these new trade deals get implemented, and that is a massive if, I'm looking at you, European farmers, they still don't make up for the full 144 billion euro hit that a full-on trade war with the US would cause.
So how can you get it?
In total, we still be looking at a shortfall of around 53 billion euros. Ouch. But before we look at even more countermeasures, a quick shout out to the people who made this video happen. Our amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Each week, our EU Made Simple members of Parliament get to vote in their favorite video idea on Discord. And this time, they picked this very video as their winner. How can the EU replace the potential trade lost with the US? So if you'd like to have a voice in what we make and support independent EU-focused journalism, consider joining us on Patreon. Your support truly means the world to us. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. So how can the EU replace those potential 53 billion euros in lost trade? And some of you are probably shouting, China! And fair enough. EU-China trade hits a massive 739 billion euros in 2023. And strikingly, there's no trade deal yet. And with a Europe-China summit coming up in this July, the relationship could truly deepen. But here's the issue. We risk falling into the same trap as with the US. Too much reliance on one unpredictable partner. And let's be honest, China's stance on Russia and Taiwan could shake the entire relationship overnight. So no, we really think there's a better option. You see, the EU has an ace up its sleeve. It's called the single market. With more than 450 million citizens and 22 million companies from 27 member states, it is the largest common market in the world. I mean, look at this. Compared to the US, the EU has 110 million more people. But so far, it hasn't really mattered, as what does the US do best? They actually fully leverage their internal market. Smooth, frictionless, high-performing. Now you might say, don't we have the same thing? And here, we would have to disagree with you.
No, because not every country in Europe is part of the complete.
And it's costing us hundreds of billions of euros of lost potential every year. Let us explain what we mean. The single market is based on 4 freedoms. Free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. We've more or less nailed goods. They can cross borders with ease. But the rest, honestly, we kind of suck. Take the second freedom, services. A plumber certified in Poland might not be allowed to work in Belgium without getting recertified.
That's crazy.
Even if they've been doing the job for 20 years. On top of EU rules, every country also has its own rules, standards, and red tape. In the US, it's different. A plumber from Ohio can work in Florida with minimal recertification and red tape required. It's not perfect either, but it's a way more unified market. Now take the third freedom. Capital. A startup in Portugal trying to raise investment from Dutch or Austrian investors may struggle because every country has different rules for taxation, bankruptcy, and investor protection. There's simply no unified framework for venture capital, and legal uncertainty makes cross-border funding harder than it should be. This means that promising businesses often scale within one country, not across Europe. Now compare that to the United States. A startup in Ohio can raise money from investors in California, Texas, or New York, all under one federal system, with uniform laws, common investor protections, and a single bankruptcy code. It's a huge reason why American companies grow fast and scale so big. And then there's the fourth freedom: people. In theory, EU citizens can live and work anywhere in the Union. In practice, it's often slow, expensive, and bureaucratic. Qualifications don't always transfer, and national rules still get in the way every single time. Meanwhile, in the US, someone from Illinois can move to Florida, rent an apartment, get a job, sign up for healthcare, and vote in elections, all without dealing with immigration paperwork and minimal qualification checks. Mobility is simply built into the system. And in all honesty, even if we rewind back to goods, we are not 100% harmonized. Member states can still add national rules on top of EU standards. For example, nutritional labels vary. France uses Nutri-Score, while others prefer traffic light systems or their own formats. And let's not get started on language requirements. Sweden, for example, requires product labels to be in Swedish. In the US, this problem does not exist. It's all the same. In reality, the free movement of people...
You see, that's the thing. You're comparing the US to the European Union or Europe. The US is one country, man. You have so many countries inside the European Union that speak different languages. So how do you want to? You need to come up if you're gonna do that. It needs to be a language for all of Europe. You guys have to have one main language, and what is that? Normally it's English, but I'm just saying. Like most of the time, like and if you go to any of these countries, people speak English. I'm not saying that's the language, guys. Okay. But I'm saying when you compare, you say, well, this person can go from Florida and work here and go to California and work in California. Yeah, we all speak English and we're still in the same country. So a person can go from Paris, France and work in Marseille, France. No problem, because you're still in that country, in France. So you're going to follow those federal and rules, and you're going to follow the country, whatever's going on in that country. Now, when you go from France to Spain, that's different, because now you got to do, it's a whole new country. So if they want to try to do something like America, but it's so much heritage within these countries, you would have to make the European Union one country, make it like one country, where you can go in and work and do everything else inside that. Besides that, it's not going to be possible. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. You're going to always have stipulations to stop you from doing, advancing like you should. Just like you said with the jobs. Yeah, if you are certified to do this job here in this country, you probably ain't going to be certified in another country. No, it's not universal.
Goods, services, capital, and even data, as promised in the EU treaties, is often more wishful thinking than everyday reality. And that comes at a cost, a massive cost. Estimates show this lack of integration could be costing the EU up to 1.1 trillion euros per year. Yes, you heard that right. 1.1 trillion euros every single year. A 2019 report broke it down. Removing just 50% of barriers to free circulation of services, that's 279 billion euros right there. Clearing the remaining hurdles for goods, 300 billion euros. A fully integrated digital single market, 450 billion euros. And just switching fully to e-procurement could add 50 billion euros more. Now, if we added that 1.1 trillion euros to the mix to help offset trade losses from the US, suddenly, that 144 billion euro gap looks tiny now, doesn't it? Now, does this mean we should turn inward and go full out Europe first? No, not at all. There's huge value in striking trade deals around the world, including with the US if they're open to it. But here's the thing. we need to get our house in order too. And the top priority has to be finishing the single market. Capital Markets Union? Yes. Energy Union? Absolutely. Defense Union? Long overdue. Digital Markets Union? Let's finally complete it. And Services Market Reform? That one alone could transform the entire EU economy. We need to get serious about all of these, and fast, because completing the single market will have a far bigger impact on our GDP, jobs, and everyday life than spending years trying to make a trade deal with someone like Trump, who frankly doesn't seem at all that interested. The EU has 100 million people more than the US. Let's make it count and finally finish our single market. Let me know what you think in the comments. And Germany is actually starting to get more serious about the single market. Check out their new coalition plans right here. And to support us further, consider joining us on Patreon and vote on video ideas every week. Thank you so much to our presidents, Jan Schauke, Christian, Peter, AGVD, BJ Unite Europe, Stefan, and Mr. Probot. See you in the next video.
So yeah, that was a good video. Very valuable information in there. But the thing is like he said, they have to get their things in order first before they can even think about getting that 1.1 trillion. You know what I'm saying? And plus, the European Union, man, listen, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen overnight. You want to get a new partnership or make your thing stronger, it's going to take time. But you have to get started. Like, you know, I'm agreeing, like making trade agreements with Trump and China. Dude, it's unpredictable. Before, America was cool before Trump got in there. You know, they were, you know, allies with the European Union, everything. But he comes in office and he's unpredictable. You don't know what China's going to do, Russia, all these people. Listen, it's unpredictable. And that's the thing that's so scary right now. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know why this guy's making these decisions. You don't know what. He has the whole world in turmoil. And it's not cool. But anyway, let me know what you thought about this video. If you're in the European Union, let me know which country you're in. And I will see you guys in the next video.